31 months and counting. That's how many months Governor J.B. Pritzker has been issuing consecutive executive orders, and he issued another one over the weekend that expires November 12th. So another executive order based off of COVID-19 that carries through the November 8th general midterm election. Good morning, it's Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News and Talk now at 6:40 and expecting a high today of only 46, but plenty of sunshine. So it's now been more than 2 years and 7 months of consecutive COVID-19 executive orders from Governor J.B. Pritzker. This past weekend, Pritzker reissued another disaster proclamation that lasts past the election and wraps up on November 1st. And obviously, he's been issuing disaster proclamations since March of 2020. And just the first line of the governor's disaster proclamation, it says, whereas since early March 2020, Illinois has faced a pandemic that's caused extraordinary sickness and loss of life, including over 3.7 million and taking the lives of more than 35,000 residents of Illinois. It goes on there from a bunch of whereases and talks about different benchmarks and all the different times the governor's declared the spread of COVID-19, even most recently, September 16th. Now we've got the most recent order where he declares that we're still a disaster, a bunch more whereases, and then he gets to the executive orders that he's extending. So this obviously is something that the state of Illinois has had to live under for 2 years and 7 months of COVID-19. So the governor's office put out a statement yesterday, essentially clarifying what the executive orders most recently do. And the order says that the updated executive order removes the weekly testing requirements for unvaccinated health care and long-term care workers. The order will also trigger an update to the Illinois Department of Public Health policy of face coverings. Face coverings are no longer required in all healthcare facilities, but are still recommended in healthcare facilities in areas of high community transmission, consistent with the CDC guidelines. Now, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they recommend masks in mid to high transmission areas, but not for low, which encompasses most of Illinois. And you can actually see the CDC's map of all the different counties in the state of Illinois and where they are when it comes to community transmission of COVID-19. Now, the governor, he has previously said that the executive orders are there to save lives. And he also talked about the importance of having these executive orders be concurrent with the federal health emergencies that have been declared. Here's what Governor J.B. Pritzker said back in the summer.
Very importantly, this is about making sure that we're dealing with COVID-19, ratcheting all the way down, keeping people safe, because COVID-19 has not gone away. And those dollars that come from the federal government are very helpful for us in order to combat that.
So, again, keeping those COVID-19 disaster proclamations rolling every 30 days, declaring that Illinois is a disaster. The governor wants that to be concurrent with the federal health emergency to access resources, taxpayer resources. So the declared federal health emergency continues through January 11th, despite President Joe Biden saying that the pandemic is over. But for more than 2 years in Illinois, Republicans, they've been demanding that the Illinois General Assembly check the governor's authority. Without that, Republican Attorney General candidate Thomas DeVore, he recently said during a forum as to why he took the governor and the Illinois Attorney General to task over COVID-19 executive orders. And here's what he had to say recently.
Any of those policies that the governor thought were appropriate should have been pursued and vetted through the General Assembly, and the legislature should have been the one to craft those solutions. And to the extent they would have done that, we would have not been in court.
So the Democratic incumbent Attorney General, Kwame Raoul, which defended the governor in all of those court cases, he said that they were trying to save lives. But Republican gubernatorial candidate State Senator Darren Bailey, who also sued the governor through Thomas DeVore filing that lawsuit back in the summer of 2020. He said that during a debate last week, it's something that the governor's executive orders were harmful, and in particular, he focused on schools, where he said that was a big problem, and he made a promise to those who were listening to the debate.
And unlike Governor Pritzker, I'll keep the schools open, and I'll make sure that parents have choice from competition.
So the Republican candidate has made COVID-19 restrictions and regulations the governor's imposed an issue in the campaign. While there aren't any strict COVID-19 mitigations in schools, as there once were, there's still vaccine mandates in place for some state employees. Governor J.B. Pritzker's announcement yesterday of details about the COVID-19 executive orders he issued, he said that the amendment it does not impact vaccination and testing requirements for state employees at state-owned congregate facilities. So that's still something very much that you're going to have at play here is the issue of COVID-19 mandates. Is this an election issue? Is this something that you're going to vote for? I'll tell you, I've got people reaching out to me who listen to the show and say, hopefully people don't allow for the individuals who brought these COVID-19 orders to bear on the public, on the economy, on our children. Hopefully they don't get reelected. And voters see what happened in the past 2 years. So some people out there do make COVID-19 and the executive orders one of the major things that they're going to the polling place for. But I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. Is this an issue? The ongoing COVID-19 disaster proclamations. And do you think that this should have been something deliberated by the state General Assembly, which was really not? And when I had asked the various leaders of the state legislature in the Democratic Party specifically, why didn't you check the governor's authority? They would tell me time and again, oh, the governor's doing a good job. And he's got it. He's got it from here. So, again, 31 plus months now we've been under COVID-19 executive orders, and remember the history of it, right? I mean, first restaurants, you couldn't go and dine in, and then schools closed, and then more businesses couldn't take part in their business because of the stay-at-home orders, and all of that really wrecked economic prospects for a lot of small businesses and kids going to school. Good morning, you're on WMAY.
Good morning.
Hey.
Yep. That amount of time just shows that he's got no desire to run it past the General Assembly, and he wants to be king throughout his duration in time. You know, I never thought it was fair from the get-go that the big stores got to stay open and mom-and-pop places could not. And I think he ought to spend his time, making an executive order that mountain lions can't be in Kane County.
Listen, we'll talk about mountain lions and a horrible tragedy of a mountain lion getting hit. But, your point, I think, is taken, right? Because a virus is going to spread regardless of whatever action an executive takes or even a legislature takes, right?
Yep. And, this is going to affect the children for a long time. They had emotional problems along with just falling behind in school.
And if you recall, there were some hearings about unaccounted for child neglect and abuse cases because kids weren't going to schools and their teachers weren't able to see the possibility that they were being abused at home. So they weren't reporting to the Department of Children and Family Services. That's a reality. Plus the deaths of despair that we saw, drug overdoses, suicides, and all of that. And then you compound all of that with the mandates for teachers to be vaccinated or to test regularly. But now, just before the election, those regular weekly tests are no longer required under the governor's most recent executive order, though vaccine mandates for certain places still very much are. So interesting to see how that's going to happen if they take away the testing option. Appreciate the phone call.
Yep. Have a good day.
You too. It is Springfield's Morning News. You can always chime in live and local at 217-629-7970. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. You can help me out with American Cancer Society. Real Men Wear Pink. Go to WMAY.com/pink. If I get $4,000, my hair is going pink. All right. So I'm at $1,300 right now. That's why I got pink nails. But you can help me get pink hair by raising up to $4,000. So let's make that happen. All right. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY Springfield.